I would like to introduce to you our second speaker of the day, Dr. Salman Abu Sitta. Salman Abu Sitta was with us several times before. Once he spoke during the social forum in Amsterdam, I think. And the second time he came and presented his atlas on Palestine. I asked Salman how I should present him to this meeting. He said, please be very short. I'm the founder of the Palestine Land Society and its president, and I've written 300 articles, publications, I think he said, and also made the Atlas of Palestine. So his name is Abu Sitta, father of 6, but I would like to call him father of 300. Can I please present to you Salman Abu Sitta?
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Wim. Thank you, my very good friend, Case. Correct pronunciation this time. These are my friends and all their group, of course, for the last 10 years. We have been friends all this time, and they have been always devoted people to the cause of Palestine, for which I admire them greatly. If Ben Gurion was alive today, he would be very happy and very sad. He would be very happy when he hears Haneen talk about Gaza. He will be happy because he will know that Al-Nakba, which he initiated, is still going on. He will be happy about that. He will not be happy about the fact that his prophecy, the young will forget, has been proven entirely false. It is Haneen, third or even fourth generation of Palestinians in Ash-Shatat. I don't use the word diaspora, Ash-Shatat, and yet she is still as active, as energetic, as lively to the Nakba as it was in 1948. What does that tell us? It tells us lots of things. I'm not going to, preach to you about the case of Palestine. Many of you know that. But I can tell you that the case of Palestine is blessed or cursed by so many adjectives. It is the most comprehensive ethnic cleansing in history. It is the longest occupation in history in the West Bank. It is the most continuous act of ethnic cleansing for 23,000 days and nights. It is also the combination of so many evils in the world. Let me give you an example. By the middle of the 20th century, Europe has given up on its colonial projects in Asia and Africa. And at that time, all the colonial soldiers from Asia and Africa packed their bags and went back to Europe. India became independent, Asia, Southeast Asia, and so on and so forth. At this very time, when the world has closed the door on this evil called colonialism, European Jewish soldiers, many were veterans from the Second World War, descended upon Palestine to a number of 65,000, increasing to 120,000, and actually depopulated Palestine. This is the longest colonial project in existence today. We speak about South Africa, it's gone. Apartheid is alive and well in Israel. We speak about racism. In many countries of the world, there is some social racism, but there is no institutional racism anywhere in the world except Israel. It is embedded in 50 laws in Israel today. You can see them in Adala website. You can count them like that. So what does that mean to us? Here I met you 2003, again 2007, here we are 2013. It means that we have not solved this problem. It means that the world public opinion is not yet strong enough to fight that. It fought it in wars. We have no Nazism anymore, we have no fascism, we have no, depending on your point of view, the difficulties or the problems of communism. All this is gone. But these evil things from man to man are still active in Palestine, and still Europe, if not supporting it, it's condoning it. And I may come to that in a moment. And so, the original sin of the creating this problem is still with us today. It is with us today for so long because it is built in so many layers of myths and mythology and fabrication and straight lies. We are told, of course, that Palestine is a land without people. We know that's false. The people who formulated this knew there were people, but to them, there were no people. So therefore, for them, Palestine is a land without people. We have been told that the Israelis, I'm very careful about using the word Jews, Zionists, and Israelis, because until the British Mandate, all the literature, political and public, talks about Jews and Arabs in Palestine. After that, they talk about Israeli and Palestinians. We are told that the Zionists accepted the partition plan and the Palestinians did not. And we are told that the refugees have left on their own accord, maybe to go to Riviera for a holiday, and it's their problem. We are told that this little strong people fighting for their existence have been attacked by hordes of savage Arabs from 7 corners of the world, and they were defeated. So what happened to them? They deserve it. They deserve it, and they have the advantages of the victorious. We are told these things. All these things are lies, and if they are not lies, they have no relevance in international law. I just want to briefly just go back to the origin of this situation. When Ben-Gurion declared his state, this is the land he occupied in Palestine. I'll come to that even in more detail. At that time, he occupied 13% of Palestine, and that is the land on which he declared himself to be a state. All the countries, the United States first, which recognize them as a de facto, not as de jure, because they control that part. But they recognize them at 13%. Then how come then he occupied 78% in 31 military operations? The colors indicate each military operation. And why did he then commit 70 massacres in order to achieve that aim? Let us examine very important 6 weeks. And these 6 weeks are from the 1st of April, 1948, to 14th of May, when he declared the state. In these 6 weeks, many things happened. First of all, in the middle of March, the United States and the United Nations together agreed that the partition plan, which was mere suggestion to solve the problem, is not workable, is not acceptable, and therefore they abolished it. There is no partition plan. The United Nations said so. And therefore, when Ben-Gurion said, I rely on the partition plan, which is not binding, proposal, even that, the thread of legal legitimacy is not there. So the United Nations appointed a man of great background, Count Fort Bernadotte. He was the head of the Red Cross in Sweden. He helped many Jews to save them in Scandinavia. And he was appointed to do that task, to put Palestine under United Nations trusteeship and to suggest how this is done. He was assassinated by the man to be Prime Minister of Israel on 17th of September 1948. Right? Now, I'm showing you this because at that moment, late in March, Ben-Gurion found the following. First, he found that even the partition plan is abandoned by the United States and the United Nations, and the British have decided they are going to leave Palestine definitely. In fact, he had secret plans how and when and from where they are going to withdraw. I happened to get these documents only a month ago from the military archives in England. And I found where the British military were planning to leave, stages from early February until actually they left in June, actually. So he decided that he will strike. Why should he strike? First of all, the British brought him to Palestine. By the Second World War, he said, I don't need them anymore. I am strong enough now to take over Palestine. So what is between him and taking over Palestine? The British forces. Therefore, from 1945 to 1948, they committed, as you know, a well-known series of terrorism, Jewish terrorism against the British, because they wanted to make them leave. And in March, when he found where the British are leaving, he decided to attack for many reasons. One, to kick the British quickly out. He knew where they were going. And anyway, he received from them 31 military airports. And second, he would like to circumvent and to abort any attempt to put Palestine under unit trusteeship. So he started by applying what's called Plan Dalet. Because there were A, B, C. He was trying to put plans to conquer Palestine from at least 4, 5, 6 years back. And now they honed down and they perfected this plan and they called it Plan D. And he decided then to take Plan D, to implement Plan D. What does Plan D do? First of all, any place where the British leave, we should take it over completely. Secondly, although the United Nations has stopped supporting the partition plan, he is going to go to the areas in which they have a large number of Jewish colonies and completely ethnically cleanse them. He did not want a state in which Arabs and Jews live. He wanted an Arab Rhine state, only Jews in it. So he started a campaign, and this campaign, I'm going to describe now, is meant to eliminate all the Arabs in the area he is going to take over when the British left, from the areas the British left. So the red areas, which I'm showing you here, are the areas the Haganah occupied in the 6 weeks from beginning of April to the middle of March, middle of May. You see, this plan here shows you that he actually attacked Palestine in all these areas and also exceeded even the partition plan. This is the blue line here, here, and this is exceeded over and above the partition plan. There's no interest in the partition plan itself, except to claim that he is actually carrying it out. What are these blue dots? These blue dots, I'm here showing you part of Palestine. This is Jerusalem, and here is Jaffa. And Haifa is above there. What are these blue dots? There are 220 Palestinian villages completely ethnically cleansed. 220 villages have been ethnically cleansed while the British were there, before the State of Israel was established, and before any Arab soldier came to rescue Palestine. And 220 villages make up half of the total refugees of today. Haneen became a refugee in the second part. But most of the people in the coastal plain up to Jerusalem and up to Haifa and Galilee, I didn't show it, but I can show it. In Galilee, most of Galilee has been made refugees before the state was established. So here is a lie put to death that we were defending ourselves against Arab attacks, 7 Arab countries going to attack us. Here we have a case in which people have been ethnically cleansed before the state was established. Here we have a case in which the British betrayal not only started with Balfour Declaration, but it continued to the last minute because it prevented the dismemberment of Palestinian society while they are there. Of the 70 massacres in Palestine, half of them, 35, took place during this period. One of them is very well known to you. Here it is, there you see it. But it's not the only one. You see the drop of blood here? This is one, this is one, this is one, this is one. There were 35 massacres. Now, why were the massacres used? It's not just, violent soldiers or aberration of behavior. No, it was a weapon of ethnic cleansing. How do you prove that? Not only by the repetition of it, not only by having the same pattern of how it took place, but also by what I call circle of influence. I have dissected this period almost day by day, what happened and who advanced, and which here is the Israeli brigade here, Hasavan, Gibati, Kiryati, Itzoni, Alexandroni. Army with tanks, with aeroplanes, with wireless, with one central command. Against whom? Against villages or places in which there are 20 or 30 people from the village with old rifles trying to defend themselves without wireless, without tanks, without anything. So it was a murder. It was a genocide. And genocide, according to the Rome Statute of 1898, is something which doesn't happen necessarily all in one big burning fire. No, it could happen in stages, slowly, with the purpose of dismemberment of the society, which is happening, as Hamid explained, until this very day, 23,000 days later. Now, these are what I call circles of influence. I found that these villages here, all these in the circle, have been ethnically cleansed as a result and because of the massacres in that area. So these villages are on this basis and so on and so forth. In Galilee, it's even much, much worse. Now, this is how Israel was created. As my friend Wim, everything else is detailed. After that is all detailed. The principle is set. The principle is set already. Ethnic cleansing, the weapon of ethnic cleansing is massacres, and therefore this has been carried on. Why is it that Gaza is attacked today? They have been depopulated 65 years ago. Why they have been chased everywhere? Why Sabra and Shatila? Why Jenin? Why Rafah? Because they don't want Palestinians who are the body of the crime to exist. They have to vanish. Physically, if possible, politically, better, and by all kinds of things. And therefore, when we are talking today, we are not talking about a traffic accident. We are not talking about historical event which has taken place, not talking about the Huns destroying Rome. We are not talking about Dunkirk. We are talking about a process in which you don't have to be my age to visit and to see the Nakba, in which every child, like your child there, 8 years old, can see it today on the TV. And therefore, our duty is compounded. You were not sorry about the loss of Spain or this. We are sorry about the loss of our conscience every day, because every man, as the saying goes, every man murdered is a loss to me. This picture here shows what happened to the survivors. I cut a lot from my talk because Hanin answered many of the things I wanted to say, but here, the people, no, I just wanted to say that it is continuous. I like the idea it's continuous. And now I give you a shot of 1948, you gave a shot of 2013, it's the same story. What I wanted to say is the pattern of expelling the population is the same. The women were relieved from their jewelry and money and told to go to Arab lives, and the men were taken into detention. This picture was taken in Ramla on 13th of July 1948. All the men from age of 12 to anywhere have been detained, to put in detention. They are, as you can see, they are civilians, farmers, school teachers, or mostly farmers from Galilee. All the farmers have been detained. Where did they take them? To forced labor camps. I say this with complete strength. Forced labor camps. They opened forced labor camps in Palestine 3 years exactly after they were closed in Germany. And they took all these people and made them to work. Made them to work to carry the ammunition, to bury the dead, to do civilian, according to the Geneva Convention, not of 1948, it was not there then, in 1929, 1907, says that civilians are never to be detained. Even the soldiers, when they surrender, they can be taken as POW, prisoner of war. And then they are not allowed to work to aid the military effort to the enemy. They can make them, eat potatoes or build roads, but never to aid the military. Now the civilians, the farmers, were detained against every conceivable law, have been made to work for the military effort. How did they know that? I dug it up from the archives of the Red Cross, and I have 500 documents, which will be published soon, showing that they have established 5 forced labor camps. The amazing thing is that we have the names of the officers who were running this, and the names of those officers, commandant they call them, of the forced labor camps are all German names. Schneiderman, Molsmann. Amazing, amazing. We have complete list of their names. Of course, maybe dead by now. Maybe dead now. And the Red Cross have accepted them to be POWs because they found, and we have lots of correspondence there, they found what can they do? If they don't accept their POWs, they will not be allowed to see them. So they decided to accept them temporarily, implicitly, but not to admit them to be like that. And when I interviewed the people who were taken into this, many people from, interviewed people from Nasra, from Haifa, and from Amman, and from Syria, and so on. After so many years, different people, they gave me the exactly same story. With one piece of bread every day, and if you turn around, they will shoot you dead. And therefore, these people were walking always, facing the soldiers, retreating, because if they turn their back, they will be shot, assume they have escaped, and so on. One of the people actually who have been in this situation, very well-renowned Palestinian economist, Yusuf Sayer, his wife Rosemary Sayer, as you probably know. Anyway, I just want to tell you that this situation, which is happening in Palestine, is not just a fight between neighbors or anything like that. But in Palestine, before 1948, which is about 1,100,000 villages, they lived there in their Palestine. They didn't have to come to it in ships or anywhere. They didn't have to claim birthright. And then the Nakba came, and the country became empty. Empty. Ethnic cleansing emptied the country. And of course, he would say, I told you, Palestine is a land without people. I made it so. Ben Gurion maybe come with this assumption that he actually achieved what he wanted to say. But what happened to those people? Here they are, in the refugee camps. Luckily for us, because our Palestine is our country, 88% of all Palestinians are still in Palestine and around it. You people here, Palestinians here, are only 12%. In the Gulf Arab countries, far away from Palestine, and in Europe and in America, only 12%. 88% are still around. In other words, we tell everybody, not only the Nakba was not a thing of the past, it's happening every day, but we tell them Palestinians here are here to stay. They have no intention to disappear. They will still be there, no matter what you do. And as if the story needs any embellishment, the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, I didn't say about Gaza, I removed it. Haneen covered that. But here is the West Bank. The West Bank, occupied in 1967. And here we have a new kind of ethnic cleansing, step by step, drop by drop. And all these villages, which are now captive villages, and build the apartheid wall, 500 roadblocks. When you come here to this place, you could probably take 15 minutes from where you are. It will take you 2 hours in Palestine. But the road system is something, a shame to the world itself. Jews only roads. I showed this particular slide to show you that an Israeli in Tel Aviv can have a swim here in the Mediterranean, in Jaffa, your city, and can go to swim in the Dead Sea in about 15 minutes, not seeing any Palestinian, not stopping at any roadblock, can have a nice swim and go back in the afternoon, while a Palestinian here from Bethlehem to go to Jerusalem or to Ramallah would take ages. These roads, Jews only roads, allow them to go through the occupied territory as the masters of the territory without meeting the occupants or occupied people. And it's amazing that almost every person, male or female, including children, are detained at one time or another. 40% of all the males since 1967 have been at one time or other in Israeli jails. If that happens, if Israel occupies Europe, God forbid, there would be 75 million of you in Israeli jails at one time or another within 40 years. Your chance will be almost 100% through 75 million at the same rate. And the empty land needs people in it. They need people, so they created something called the Israeli law of return. Nobody in the world recognized that except Israel. And they have a nice idea that those who are not from here are welcome back from Russia, USA, Ethiopia, North Pole, Amazon, Mars, Venus, and so on. They can all come. They can all come. But those people who are not from here, they should go back. That's the essence of the law of the 10, preventing the Palestinians from coming to returning to their homes. Now, all this, most of this, you know it. I just wanted to. We have a duty to answer this question. This question is a duty on everyone, no matter where. Why? Because nothing now is local. Anything happens anywhere, you will be affected for it. And you can never say, like before 1948, I did not know. Now, with one click on your computer, you can know everything almost by the minute, almost by the minute. And of course, as you know, silence is complicity. And of course, complicity is partnership in the crime. And you are here because you don't accept to be silent. But I would, of course, love to see sort of nice group here to be multiplied 100 times, 1,000 times, and so on. Because those who do not know are the losers. One day they will face the consequences of not knowing. And I will come to that in a minute, how these consequences can be removed. And of course, the answer to all this is that Haneen should go back to her grandfather's place, and all the refugees should return. This is, by the way, the most fundamental law, international law, which is not disputed at any level. In addition to that, the right of return of the Palestinians have been affirmed by the international community more than 130 times, but longer than any resolution and more consistently than any resolution in UN history. In UN history, there is nothing like it. Since 1948 till today, it has been affirmed over and over again. And if we have that duty, and we have that legal right, it's called inalienable right, let us be practical and say, what is preventing us from returning? Let us see, for example, today, NATO forces, as they done in Serbia, or in Iraq under dubious reasons, say we have to apply international law, Palestinians should return. Do we know where the refugees are? Do we know where they come from? How can we actually arrange for them to return? The Israelis say the place is full and there's no place for them. We actually destroy their homes, and therefore it's not practical. It's not practical. The rest is justice. And we tried, of course, to work around this. I'll make it brief. We know everything about the refugees. Here is the village of Jia, the populated village. These are the people in Jia where they are. Some of them are in Lebanon, but mostly around here. And we can also do this to another village, Beit Mahsir, west of Jerusalem. And we can do this for Galilee and Safariya. So we have no problem with that. We can also reverse the process. We have a database which tells us any refugee camp in, for example, Yarmouk, where they come from. And the screen will show you all the villages where they come from. We can give you their names, we can give you their population number, and we can even tell you what their property are, and so on. So we have no problem with that. But the Israelis say its place is full. So we made an analysis where the Israelis live today and who lives there. We divided them into Russians and Ashkenazis and, assortment in 5 categories. Anyway, we know who lives there today. And we divided here, we used the Israeli division of 46 natural regions. And we found, here are the population detail, we found that 84% of the Israeli Jews live in 17% of Israel. 84%. And the rest is empty. Is it empty? Is it empty? Well, the rest, 83%, have 2% of the Israeli Jews in the kibbutz. But 75% of this land is for the Israeli army. They have 55 airports in such a small space. They have weapons of mass destruction. They have atomic storehouses. They have training fields. 75% of Israel is controlled by the army. And that makes it actually the largest and, of course, most dangerous military base anywhere from Amsterdam to Beijing. It's the biggest one in this region. From Amsterdam to Beijing, there is not a bigger military base than this one. If there is peace, who needs that? Who needs that? From Amsterdam to Beijing, there is not a bigger military base than this one. If there is peace, who needs that? Who needs that? But we can go further. We said, let us see the land of the depopulated villages and not work with the natural regions of Israel. Just see the land, in Palestine, during the government of Palestine under the British. Every village has its own administrative area, its land, and so on. So we know that. And we said, if Palestinians return, where will they find the Jews are occupying most of their land? And these areas are here. And in these little areas, which are tiny place, maybe 10% of the area here, lives 80% of Israeli Jews. Right? If, for example, just example, I just came in my head. Now, if the people here, Palestinians whose land here, they say, okay, we'll give you this gift on Christmas or Passover or whatever. Live here. Let us go back to the red dots. We depopulate the villages. Here, it's all empty. These are our villages, all empty, nothing in there. So from that, then we see that all these, excuses are, of course, patently untrue, and they know it, but they don't know that we know it. And therefore, we decided to say, okay, let us rebuild the destroyed Palestinian villages. Someone said this is very unrealistic. I said, yeah, it is unrealistic. People, 80% of Palestinians can see their houses or their land by eye. Is it less realistic than a man drinking coffee in Vienna street and telling his friends that in 50 years I'm going to give you a state you have never seen? That's what Herzl did in 1897. He was drinking coffee in a Vienna cafe, told them, a place you don't know, I have never been there, it will be your state in 50 years' time. And they achieved it thanks to Europe and USA. By force, only by force, not by law. So is that more realistic? Or are we less realistic in saying that we can return to our villages? And therefore we divided Palestine from reconstruction point of view, here is the reason for my title, to 10 regions, basically because of the terrain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or the building materials, or the weather, or the road system, and we could build a typical village, design for a village that is, in this region 9, or more or less the same characteristics, and here, and here, and so on. So these are just for the architectural terms of reference. We are going to have an international competition between Palestinian architects about rebuilding their villages. How do we do that? We are documenting now so many of Palestinian villages as they were before 48. This is aerial picture from 1945 of Beit Georgia, just north of Gaza. And we have the names of the owners of the houses here, all of those. We checked it with them, and we have completed the documentation as it was, and we know that the population now is 7.5 times more. So now they have internet and they have electricity and all that. But this is the job of the architects, and therefore we will build on this basis and reconstruct all the Palestinian villages. And we can actually see how much it costs, and we can actually divide them into phases. Each phase from Syria, Lebanon, from Gaza, from West Bank, from Jordan. We know how many each number of each people, number of families, construction area, number of housing units, and so on, and so forth. And we found, again, another surprising result. Number one, that the Palestinians themselves, with their own labor force, they can rebuild those villages. We have enough engineers, we have enough labor. Actually, I've been in Kuwait for many years, and in the Gulf, we are much more bigger than that. All what we need is only 1.5 million housing units. Nothing. It could be done within spaced out 6 to 8 years, just for sake of construction. But there is one more important thing. In Europe, they pay taxes, they pay subsidies to Israel. For example, in EU-Israel agreement, association agreement, Europe pays to Israel, it's the second largest partner with Israel after the United States. They pay them $200 million alone for military research in order to do surveillance. And this group, under sort of formula program, framework program, with Europe, spent in order to create this military strategy run and administered by a Mossad officer. And they paid him, I think, from my head, the trade is about $20 billion with Europe. And if you add this to the compensation paid by Germany to Israel, which was not in existence in 1945, if you add this to subsidies of all kinds and shapes, if you add this to the reluctance of some politicians of declaring that products from the settlements are not acceptable here, if you add all this, add also this to add to this what European Union pays to UNRWA and to PA, all this money, probably 500 billion if you add them up. I'm not sure, but from 500 to $1,000 billion. And it is not stopping. It's continuous. When people complain about the economy, see the drain of this money going out to cases which are against every article in the international law. And I would say to them, keep your money. We can have a solution for you. One single payment and you close the tap. With 1/10 of this amount, you can rebuild all the Palestinian villages. Even less than that, maybe 1/20 of that. And it is not every year, not for 65 years, just once or twice, 2 shipments, 2 payments. And even so, don't pay anything. Just stop feeding the money to Israel. Make it is compliance with the international law. In other words, we don't want you to do things. We want you not to do things. At least not to do things which put wood into the fire. And therefore, we have to accelerate our public opinion and the force of our activities in the parliament and so on, so that the people's power, now with the benefit of the new technology, is very important. A person by himself 30 years ago means nothing in politics. A weak person has no power. But so many millions of weak persons make a power which make the toughest politician shudder of its strength. And this is where you come in. That's where your conscience will lead you to. And therefore, we should work on that so that justice will prevail and make that day come sooner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Salman and Sitta, for giving us this vision of the future which is possible and where all of us may be able to play a role, provided we are sufficient people. Those 1.5 million weak people together make a huge strength. So let's remember that. I think the time has come and many people will be wanting to ask questions. How you think we can make this work? And so I'd like to invite the people in the room to put up their fingers. I'll take a few questions at once. Maybe that's a good idea. What about starting in the right side of the room? Are there any people who want to ask questions? Okay. There is Basma again, and there is Egbert. Yes, Egbert, stand up and ask your question.
Okay. Thank you for your enlightening presentation. I would just like to ask you, imagine the right of return will be achieved politically speaking. A solution will be found in which all Palestinian refugees who are willing to do so will return to their places of origin. How many would actually make this choice to return? Because I would expect people to base their choices on where they want to live, on all sorts of pragmatic considerations, where they can find a job, where they can find good housing opportunities, where they can find other facilities, good schools for their children, etc., etc. How many would actually choose to return to the places of their parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents?
My question is actually what you just mentioned with regard to the boycotting Israel. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, he just, decided to just calm down with regard to labeling all products coming from the settlements. So this is one, this is maybe something new, we all need to know. And second, how we can actually impact the Netherlands, because our new king, Willem-Alexander, he has linked his name also, we know also this, to a water project in the Negev where thousands of Bedouins has to be evacuated actually for this. So there's actually a lot of things happening. We know this, we see it, people write about it, but we don't know how to reach those people. Our king, because I'm Dutch, I'm concerned about it, I'm a Palestinian also, so I know. But we cannot reach those people, we cannot impact them, we cannot tell them why they shouldn't do this, why this minister, because he's so much influenced also by the Israeli lobby, we know this. And they have been threatened, I heard even, if you don't do what we say, we will do that. Okay. So, this is my question. Two very different questions.
Yeah, right. The first question is, how many people would like to return? The return to your country is an inalienable right. It's not a season ticket which will expire after some time. No, it is not a season ticket. You have it for a year. If you don't use it, you lose it. The right of return, you as a Dutch person, I assume, could be living in Indonesia for 20 years. You decide to come back. You come back. If you are Greek living in United States, you could return. If you are a German, Turk person living in Germany, you could return even when you become grandfather. Because the alienation of your identity is not allowed at all. And this is something you decide. And the people you go to, that means your country, also decide that you are one of them. And therefore, this question of how many will go, I addressed it in one of the slides, and it seemed to me, I'm an engineer and planner, I do projects all the time, and this is my job. And it seemed to me, it's irrelevant to my plan or to a plan to know how many, because I did the maximum. So if I have lesser people coming, I have probably lesser houses. Doesn't mean they do not exist. It means the son in the school, you will wait another year, and so on and so forth. Maybe he decide after so many years. And therefore, this is a logistic problem. We should never think about it as a condition for return. We should say, what's preventing return? I did not elaborate at this point. As you can see, no logistics is against it, no economy, no international laws against it, no proximity, no difficulty of writing, of finding who you are, where you want to go. There are no problems like that. By the way, our case is far more documented and far more clear and far more supported internationally than any other case in history, in recent history, like Serbia, like Bosnia, who are much more documented than them. We are better, much better than South Africa, and so on. By the way, in all these cases, only 1% of the refugees couldn't or wouldn't return. The rest did return. So I leave that till the time when the world says, actually not the world says, the people who are stopping our return, make it possible. And by the way, when I counted all the possibilities, you or I will ask the simple question, what is stopping them from returning? They have logistics, they know what stopping them. You know what is stopping them. Stopping them is Israeli Zionist policies, racism, apartheid. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, let me be absolutely clear. There can be no return. And if there is no return, there is no peace. There can be no return if Zionism is still in control. It has to be demolished and abolished and become a free democratic country. Without that, that is the essence of the return. I explained all these things just to show you that it is the only obstacle remaining. And therefore, in my view, in historical view, there is no doubt that this edifice of racism will crumble and freedom will prevail. Your question about politicians.
One short addition. My question actually is not to tell this, because everybody knows this. My question is, when I speak to the Dutch about this, they say, oh, it doesn't affect me. I have nothing to lose. You know, I have my salary, I pay my taxes, I'm happy. Why should I bother? So.
Some years ago, CPW came here when Europe wanted to upgrade. When Europe wanted to upgrade Israel's conditions in EU-Israel association. And many countries, to their credit, European countries, said, our rules say you cannot extend cooperation with us unless you respect human rights law. And many European countries have agreed that this should be a condition. Israel should not be upgraded unless it complies with international law. CPW came here lobbying for the upgrade, provided the our conditions for human rights law should not be applied. And I regret to say, 2 countries accepted her condition that it should not be conditioned, namely Germany and Holland. Check it out.
Let's move to the other side of the room. I see 2 fingers. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Peter Vrienden from Groningen. I fully support your story because I think this is, I think the solution: one country, all people saying that have the same rights. But I always have this problem that, especially the initiative of Abbas of getting the status of Palestine high up in the UN, causes some kind of confusion, because could you support that? On the one hand, of course I want to support that, but on the other hand, I think that the international community, if there is going to be any kind of development, which is not now there, there's no peace process, but if there could be some kind of initiative, they will always talk about solution in both 2 countries, I think. And then the question is, how can we in fact prevent that? Because any kind of negotiations is just, in fact, what you say. There is no need for negotiations because we know the solution. But but how can you, well, make the solution? It's so complicated.
Would you like to answer this question?
Yes. I don't see the state as a solution to the problem, for a very simple reason. To return to your home is not a political act. It's a basic human right. It's called inalienable right. And therefore, the inalienable right is not something to be negotiated or bargained about. State or no state, in what boundary or not, Israel, by the way, has no borders. The armistice line dividing them from the West Bank and Gaza is a temporary line. They made it for 65 years, but the Article 2 of the Armistice Agreement in 1945, which is valid till today, says this line has no meaning, it doesn't give any right or deprive any right. So, let us say Israel has no border, except people who accept it as de facto, as I said. Now, when you come to a state is not a human rights law, except if derived from self-determination. But generally speaking, state formation is a political act, agreed, accepted by a number of countries around you or in the world, saying, we agree that you are the Duke of Monte Carlo. Whether you are Duke of Monte Carlo or not, this is irrelevant to the people of Monte Carlo, because they are still living there in their countries. And therefore, there can never be, neither in morality, nor international law, nor in history, any bartering or trading between the state formation and between the right of return. You could return to your home if you are sufficiently no numerous in that, and you have democratic right like everybody else, you elect your government. Do I need to tell you about Czechoslovakia? Do I need to tell you about Yugoslavia, now Serbia and Croatia and Bosnia? These are new formations which are changing all the world. Do I need to tell you about the Soviet Union, which is now Russia? The state formation has nothing to do with international rights. When people live in a territory, they divide it between themselves with one government or not, but nobody expelled or uprooted from his home. And if he is uprooted, he should go back to it. So the trick of Abbas and so on is just a stone in the lake, or a cry in the night. It does something, but actually it doesn't change anything at all. If, for example, I mean, you know, there are countries which are not recognized by half of the world, and countries which are recognized, but they are not really legally constituted like Israel. So let us separate the issues. The political side is a passing issue, it will change tomorrow, and the human rights is a permanent one.
I believe there was a question in front of him.
Oh, she was first.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah, I have two questions. The first question...
Aurora, you are not allowed to ask questions. We know Aurora for a long time.
I would like to ask if you could please comment about the situation of the Palestinian refugees in Syria at the moment, and how that connects to the concept of the ongoing Nakba. And the second question is if you could speak a bit about how aware the Palestinians in the camps in the surrounding Arab countries are of the BDS campaign, and what their assessment is of it.
Oh yeah. What about a two-state solution? Should we reject that idea and stop talking about it? Two-state resolution. Solution.
Okay?
No, stay with this.
No, right, okay.
Answer the question. There is a consensus that they want to.
Sorry.
I have one question about your suggestion to us that we are 1.5 million people and we have so much power as people. And but when we go to our governments and you know, with refugee costs and so on, we always get the argument, yes, but Israel is not so afraid of the Palestinians. But what about all the Arab countries surrounding that little Israel and threatening them daily? And don't we have to protect Israel? Don't we have a duty to protect this small little Israel?
Depends on who's small little person. Aurora, you know about Syria as I do, and so on. It's a very tragic situation. I don't think it simply emphasizes what I'm saying here, that the situation cannot be solved unless we go to the root of the problem. You can also mention the Palestinians who left Kuwait in 1990, people who left in Libya and so on. So let us go to the core and answer that core, and everything follows from that. The second question about?
Yeah, two-state solution.
Two-state solution. Is it good or bad? The answer to me, is it, you're asking if there's a good thing? The answer to me is left in the hands of the people who return and live in their homes in freedom.
Yeah.
Then they can make any decision they like. I feel, for one thing, doesn't bother about one state, 2 states, 100 states, but first we have to have the people in situ, put them back, give them freedom, and then they decide. About politicians, when they say that, when they say little Israel, I think you know, anyone who has an iota of knowledge of history or politics will know whose the weak party is, who is the one who need support. And in reverse, we know, and they know, he is the one who's flouting almost every article in the international law. And when they say the Arab countries are threatening them, I don't think they are. I wish they are strong enough to tell Israel, you comply with the international law or else, but they are not. The question is, why are they threatening them, if it is true? I don't think Qatar is threatening Israel. Qatar is doing other things. Why is it so? I mean, any intelligent person would ask, why are they are threatening you? You came from Prussia and Poland and cleaned up the place from its natural people, and you are bombarded them even 3 months back. And on whose side you stay? On whose side? Who's threatening whom? If you really want international law, then the answer is this. But if you either want to perpetuate colonial projects, or you feel you are indebted to Jews who were living here and you want to help them out at the expense of the Palestinians, I tell Europe, don't pay for your sins by Palestinian blood. They are doing that. Don't pay for your sins by Palestinian blood. And they are doing that.
Do you think that also the Jews, the so named Israelis, have right to go back to their own lands, For example, the people who came from the USA, Europe, Africa, Arab lands, do they have right to go back to their own lands?
Of course they have the right. And they do it all the time. There are at least 750,000 people who are holding Israeli passports who returned and live in the United States and everywhere. There is not a single Israeli who doesn't have a single passport or can have it, because some have five. So they are free. And if they want to live in Palestine, in a land they own legally, and they live in freedom, and they don't have Uzi machine gun, and they want to live freely, they're welcome.
I think we take another 2 questions.
Yes.
Because it's already late.
I want to ask.
I think, well, do we allow
I am Palestinian also, Palestinian refugee.
Yes.
I know, I agree with you. I wanted that the people have the right to go to their homeland, so as we also. In this case, because of that right for all people to return to their homeland, and
Applies to them as well.
Well, politically, yes, we need to process that. And the Europe Union, Europe lands, USA, United Nations, to make it possible to the people to go back. But I believe that there are a lot of people, the so named Israelis, because I don't recognize the land. So named, they will go back to their land.
They are going back.
They go back.
Thank you. Other more questions? I'm going to take 2 questions. There's one.
Waiting for the question.
Right. During the last years, you hear more claims about.
Even stilte alsjeblieft.
During the last years, you hear more and more claims about Jewish refugees from Arab countries, and I think these are tactical arguments put forward to neutralize the Palestinian right to return. There are claims that there are even more Jews from Arab countries that were expulsed than Palestinians from Palestine. How do you, let's say, perceive and also address that argument, which I think is political and ideological?
This analogy is put by Israel a long time ago, and they abandoned it because it backfires on them. They abandoned this clearly, and you remember probably in 1970 they established something called WOJAC, World Organization for Jews from Arab World, and then the Israeli government closed that office because very embarrassing. In fact, when even the agreement with Palestine, with Egypt, treaty was signed, the Israelis never raised a claim for the Jews who were in Egypt, who were mostly, half of them are not Egyptians anyway. This is a fallacy, because there is no comparison between the two cases, neither in space, nor in time, nor in legal population. If the Palestinians were not ethnically cleansed, those Jews from Arab countries could not have come, could not have been accommodated in Palestine. So the condition for bringing them was to depopulate and ethnically cleanse Palestine. I have a study I can send to you. I show you by sheer space and place that if those villages, 675 Palestinian villages, were not depopulated, those Jews from Arab countries would not have been able to be accommodated or even come. So they are beneficiaries of that, not because of themselves, but because of Israel. And there is no relation, neither in time, nor in place, nor in legal formulation. There is nothing in the international law on the side of the Jews who voluntarily left to Palestine, to Israel that is, because they wanted to be Zionists. In other words, they came in aeroplanes with suitcases, not in the middle of night. A woman cannot carry her child with the machine gun whizzing in her ears. Okay? So I attended in 1997 a big international conference about compensation, and not a single jurist found any analogy between the two. If those people, let me also advise you one thing. Ben Gurion was not very keen on them. He called them the dirt of the earth. He did not want them. And when they came to Israel, they were sprayed with DDT and put in ma'barot. But when he asked the European Jews to come, hey, a place is empty, come, it's yours. 80% refused to go to Palestine, Israel. And they wanted to go to States or to Europe. Europe is also guilty in not allowing them freedom at that time. Now, of course, many German Jews are returning to Germany. So, therefore, there is no comparison between the two. If they have a claim, they are most welcome. They go to Arab countries where they live and apply to them. This has nothing to do with Palestinians.
I would like to have the privilege of asking the last question. There is sometimes confusion about the number of generations of victims of the Nakba, you know, their children, their grandchildren, that still are entitled to the right of return. Could you say something about that?
Thank you very much for bringing this up, because there is a great expert on the Israel-Palestine question, unknown to any of you, even unknown to other experts. His name is Senator Kirk. He invented the notion about a year ago that the Palestinian refugees are not 7 million, 5 registered and 2 registered. They are only 50,000. He discovered that, and he defied the wisdom and the experience of hundreds of experts and politicians over so many years, and he came with this great revelation. He invented a new theory. Palestinians are only 30,000. And of course, he's not even that smart, because he was fed the information by the Zionist lobby. We have the name of the person, Jonathan Schanzer, who gave him the idea that the refugees are the ones who are still alive from the time they were expelled. I mean, if anyone really even think of that, it shows you how low can people come in understanding human rights or human beings. The UNRWA, when it was established in the first year, its term is 3 years. And it is still today 3 years. In the first cycle of 3 years, by the end of the 3 years, and I have the documents, yeah, they are online, UNRWA director wrote to the United Nations saying that all the attempts to return the refugees in Lausanne Agreement has been unsuccessful. The real story, of course, that Israel refused to admit them. And so they said, we have to get them back. Last year their number is so much, now they have children. And the United Nations passed a resolution that the children of the refugees are refugees. And this actually answered to a very simple, logical and human principle. If some thugs come to your house and kick you out, I mean, I'm not talking to anybody in particular, and the man and wife were left on the street, and they set up a tent in front of their house, and the woman is pregnant, and she gave birth to a baby. Will that baby entitled to his home across a few meters back? If that thug did not kick him out, would he not be living in the house a few meters away? Of course the answer is yes. And in law, the consequence of a crime is a crime as well. And therefore, the United Nations resolution of accepting the children of refugees as refugees is not only sound from an international point, but also of a human rights point of view. Because otherwise, it will condone a crime and will tell the thief that yes, you have the ownership of the house, and the other person no more owns it. Let me tell you one thing to prove that. There is a very not so well known resolution in the United Nations. Every year they say Palestinian refugees are entitled to all the revenue from their houses, from their lands, from their farms, and Israel must keep a record of that. And they say it is an obligation upon all member states that they should do their best to record and document everything about how their property has been used and how much revenue came to it. This is a resolution. Now, recently, after 65 years, it's not mentioned because not much in the news. But that tells you that the house and the land still belongs to the main owner, and the refugee who's expelled from him, whatever he have, one child or a generation of children, is still a refugee.
Now, before I thank Dr. Salman Sitta, I would like to ask you to please stay in the room for a few more moments after I thanked him, because I know when the speaker is thanked, then everybody gets up. So I'd like to prevent that. So, Salman Sitta, thank you so much for giving us all this wisdom and information and inspiration for our work. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You have been an inspiration to me because thank you so much.
I will explain to you what's in it later.
Thank you so much.
It's a work of art.
Thank you very
And
much.
there is a gift for Hanif as well. We have a lot of inspiration. We zijn nu heel geïnspireerd voor de komende tijd om te werken aan ook het oplossen van de vluchtelingenkwestie. En het instrument dat we hebben om ons in te zetten voor de Palestijnse zaak en voor de rechten van de Palestijnen is natuurlijk de boycottcampagne. Boycott, divestment en sanctions. En het Palestina-comité is gecommitteerd heeft zich voorgenomen om de komende jaren dat als speerpunt voor zijn werk te nemen en doet dat ook al geruime tijd. Een van de acties die het comité heeft genomen is om samen met bondgenoten, er zijn nu 20 organisaties, een club op te richten, een stichting op te zetten. De stichting Diensten en Onderzoekscentrum Palestina. En dat is een groep die zich specifiek inzet voor de boycottcampagne. Het Palestina-comité heeft daaraan veel geld gedoneerd voor de start van het werk van Doc-P. En voordat jullie weggaan, kunnen jullie ook nog even kijken of er mogelijkheden zijn om vriend te worden van het Palestina-comité en het werk voor de boycottcampagne, maar ook voor het organiseren van dit soort bijeenkomsten te steunen. Benji, jij wilde ook nog...
Ja, een paar dingen voordat jullie weggaan. Eerst eventjes maar een hartelijk applaus voor 3 mensen. Sonja voor de presentatie, denk ik. Marieke voor haar rol in de organisatie. En Gustav voor zijn technische ondersteuning. Gustav mag en natuurlijk zal zijn de tijd te zien zijn via de website van het Palestina-comité www.palestina-comité met elkaar natuurlijk, want we zijn met 60 jaren.nl. Dat is het eerste. Tweede, toch nog even, ja, als ik één ding wat heb geleerd van onze voorzitter, dan is dat frappé, frappé, frappé toujours. We hebben er geen Nederlandse uitdrukking voor, maar wel een hele slappe uit de reclamewereld. Herhaling is de toverkracht van de reclame. Dus dat gaan we het even doen. Jullie hebben 3. Nou, herhaling, maar niet precies hetzelfde dan. Je moet altijd even wat anders zeggen. En altijd wat anders doelen. Jullie hebben er 3 folders gekregen bij het binnenkomst. Nou, Sonja had er wel over. De 1 was van Doc-P, en dat zeg ik even als voorzitter van Doc-P, met die pet op. Aanstaande woensdagavond protesteer tegen het Europees kampioenschap voetbal in Israël. Wil je er meer van weten? www.docp.nl of een e-mailtje naar marloes@docp.nl. Dat was 1. Dat is een herhaling. Tweede is ook even een herhaling. Ook weer wat Sonja heeft gezet. Bittere noodzaak. Zeg ik nu even met mijn pet op als penningmeester van het Nederlands Palestina-comité. Word vriendin of word vriend van het NPK. Die formulier heb je gekregen. Vul in. Haal nog een stapeltje, neem ze mee, geef ze aan vrienden en verwanten. En het derde. En dat was even geïnspireerd eigenlijk door het verhaal van Hani. Ik dacht, het begint er niet over, maar doordat zij zei, dacht ik, dat moet ik toch wel even zeggen. En in mijn rugzak vond ik nog een derde pet, dat is namelijk voorzitter van de Stichting Palestina. Die zich al bijna 20 jaar bezighoudt met humanitaire projecten in de bezette Palestijnse gebieden. En de laatste 12 jaar of zo zijn er vooral medische projecten. Waaronder de laatste jaren ziekenhuizen, klinieken in Gaza. Nou, de derde folder die jullie hebben gekregen was voor een kunstveiling op 16 juni in Rotterdam. De hele opbrengst daarvan is bestemd voor het ziekenhuis in Gaza. Het Dar es-Salaam, kleine kliniek in Gan Yunis bij het vluchtelingenkamp, wat wij al een aantal jaren steunen. Kom naar de kunstveiling, koop kunst. Er zijn al zo'n 25 artiesten die werken hebben afgestaan. Dus een hartstikke mooie verzameling. Kom daar, ga kopen. En als je dan niet in staat bent naar Rotterdam te komen om mee te doen, je kan via de website die binnenkort de lucht in komt, www.12gaza, eenmaal andermaal verkocht, dus 12gaza.nl, kan je ook dadelijk gaan bieden zodra de kunststukken erop staan, kunstwerken erop staan. En anders kun je natuurlijk altijd doneren via voor de Stichting Palestina. En als je daar niet adresgegevens van hebt, dan moet je mij maar even aanschieten. Zo ja, dat was gewoon alles wat ik kwijt wilde. Niet zoveel, hè?
Ik hoop het.
Nog 1 dingetje.
Wim, je hebt ook
Ja.
een mededeling?
Nou ja, mijn handschrift is kennelijk reuze cryptisch. Op het papiertje wat ik Sonja gaf stond dat er volgende week, de 18e mei, is er in Brussel een demonstratie bij de gebouwen van de Europese Unie. En ook in het kader van protesteren tegen de Europese complicity met de ongoing Nakba. En voor degenen die daar meer over willen weten, die kunnen op de website van het Palestina-comité kijken. En dan staat daar precies het wat en hoe enzovoort.
Rest mij om iedereen die hier geweest is vandaag te bedanken voor zijn komst, zijn en haar komst. En ook alle vrijwilligers, Gustav, iedereen die deze bijeenkomst mogelijk heeft. Plus natuurlijk onze Palestijnse bondgenoten, waarmee wij samen deze bijeenkomst hebben georganiseerd. Een prettige dag.